So there's a North American Indian speaking about responsibilities. You know, he was talking about the West, demand rights and different things like that, where the Indian thinks about responsibilities. I think both of them have their place. But one of the things that is kind of lacking a wee bit in the West, if you like, is the idea of responsibilities. So much of our responsibilities have been given up to things like, that's the government's job or the council. It's always somebody else's problem, nothing to do with me. It's I have rights, but missing out that idea about responsibilities. And the only way we're going to change anything, when you think about it, it is the case of they have the money, but we have the people. And unless you can get people to connect up and understand what their responsibilities are, as well as their rights, I think we're kind of hiding to nothing. So what we want to talk about here is the idea of citizenship, which is a kind of old-fashioned kind of word, but it will do for the purposes of what we want to speak about. Hi, welcome to the City Geographer, a weekly update on the art of living in the city. In these programmes, we want to look at the dynamic of the city as a microcosm of a much wider set of problems, solutions and opportunities. Things we can help to deal with at a local level in the context of city life that can also reflect in a much wider of national and international perspectives of situations. In today's episode, we will be looking at citizenship. We'll look at the general idea of citizenship as a learning tool, why we need to reinstate it in city life, how it could help to give meaning to things, how it might fit into our daily experience, and importantly, how it would help us to become more generalist thinkers. We could use the analogy here that to understand the world, you might first understand the city as a microcosm of the world, and in turn the village or community as a microcosm of the city. So in this we can never be too parochial. As we have seen, world events can also have a speedy effect on the local. So citizenship, the general idea is supposed to be a relationship between an individual and the state, to which the individual owes allegiance to the state and in turn is entitled to its protection. So one would be hard pushed to find this part of this social contract in operation today, while a state ambles on in perpetuity, unchanged in its antiquated traditions and its allegiance only to banks and the upper classes, while the citizen remains in what would seem perpetual victimhood. Sheldon S. Wolin supplies us a more apt description of citizenship that is more suitable for the purposes of what we want to discuss here. He describes being a citizen involves doing the best one can and taking part in common tasks, the deliberations that define them, and the responsibilities that follow. As a way of existence, citizenship lives in the ebb and flow of everyday activities, responsibilities and relationships. That means in city affairs, the citizen should not only be part of the decision-making process, but also be fully involved in forming the questions. Not just ticking a box and expecting something good to happen, but fully engaged in the process and activities. Today, the ebb and flow for many, if not most folk, has become a clamorous battle, where our only chance of survival depends on our ability to survive in the market economy. But to fight these battles, which is exactly what they are, a flexibility of wit, will, adaptation, and imagination is needed. Think global, act local gets near to describing the kind of citizenship we need in the present. More an internationalism, that is in building our groups, campaigns and communities while keeping an eye and the wider picture of global events and politics would seem an imperative at this time in our history. So looking at citizenship as a collective learning process and help to do as Wallen suggests, the best one can in taking part in common tasks, and so on. Common tasks that would help to redefine the city as a place for all of the people who live there, and particularly to reach all of the communities and villages that define our identity. But like everything else, there's a certain amount of effort involved in work to change things. Some of it can be boring, tedious, even hard-won, and much of it can't fit into the short-termism seen in much of daily life, or the sporadic protest that explodes in a sea of colour, then peters out when the banners are rolled up and the folk go home. We need some of this, but real change is based in the idea that each of us, by working in some even small way on the various details that will form the bigger picture, we find solutions to take us forward. We don't only need to know what we are for, but how to convince others to join us. That sometimes takes some self-examination and attention to what is happening around us. But mostly as we commit to learning, we also start to see meaning in what we do, and through that find the confidence to continue. So maybe the thing here is to get back to some basic ideas in education and citizenship, or if you like, learning and responsibilities. And the prospect of living a decent life in a city, in the public space of a place that is becoming more and more to resemble a giant shopping mall rather than a civic centre, that should cater to a whole variety of public institutions and interests. There's nothing normal about what our city looks like. It's not just the way things are nowadays, because it is not what most people ask for. To put it bluntly, before we move on, most of our overarching problems come as part of the neoliberal project, which is like capitalism and steroids. It is an oppressive economic project that is run at the top by psychopaths and power-hungry deviants who should be in prison, along with their minions who permeate through our polity and lives, doing the dirty work for the neoliberal masters. Our city has become more and more a monotonous byproduct of this project. We hardly need to waste time going over the details. Most folk can get this without even explanation, because it's part of their daily experience, and they could probably describe in even more intimate detail of how the present economic and political system has and is jeopardising their prospects for happiness. But again, that's the easy part to understand. The difficult part is what to do to change things. Well, we could forget right away about voting for someone else in the same club. As the saying goes, and particularly for today, if voting changed then, it would be banned. And if it did change then, it will have depended on the citizenship of the voters to make sure their representatives' promises were carried out to the letter. It's about learning to work within the possibilities that we have and not believing the promises that are too easily made. And the process can start with our neighbours, our friends, our acquaintances, and discovering that approaches we have in common against common ills are also what can be enjoyed together. That's the simple essence of citizenship. This is the interface of responsibility where the ordinary citizens need to up their game, because as Frederick Douglass reminds us, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. But it needs to be remembered that they will never tell us when we're winning. But as Grace Lee Boggs of Detroit reminds us, we never know how our small activities will affect others through the invisible fabric of our connectedness. In this exquisitely connected world, it's never a question of critical mass, it's always about critical connections. Meaning, the more you know about what's going on around you, the more connections can be made in solving our own problems than leaving them to the rest to solve them for their own benefit. If this is a kind of wider understanding of citizenship, or whatever folk wish to call it, which, if it cannot be engendered within the social psyche, people will continue to deal with problems as they arrive, as if each is a different phenomenon, rather than being considered and treated as different parts of the same strategies, tricks and subterfuge that has been used against the citizens' interests by the state for centuries. And it needs to be self-learning. The state education system does not teach us to protect ourselves from government and business. It only teaches us how we can best serve them. And on education, the once valued Scottish generalist tradition of education, where ideas in the arts, philosophy and the sciences could intermingle, has been replaced more and more by specialist subjects, to the point where even the university educated can fail to mingle or even understand the importance of Enlightenment thinking, of broader collective disciplines, of areas and scope for learning. So I need to get back to the generalist tradition, as it was designed to produce broad-thinking people rather than educated cogs to serve commercial interests. Because a powerful collectivist approach works to support and understand where support is needed most. A safeguard to understanding the critical connections between activities and aims, and also in understanding where energies lie, where energies need to be, and to understand how directionless, fragmented, distractive energy only serves to make us powerless. And finally, we need more outlets and a catalogue of such outlets that can articulate working class history, traditions and incidents that highlight sometimes even recent forgotten tragic events that remind us who the real enemies and friends of ordinary people are, and along with the events that have shown our humanity and how we take back our agency amid the propaganda, depoliticisation of those overburdened by the struggle to survive. As far as city life goes, to start somewhere, we need to decide whether we wish to live in a shopping mall or a place free of fear, hunger, landlords and parasites. But these types will not give up easily, as they're as frightened of losing their charmed life, of ruling over us, as we are of the impact their greed has on our lives. But as it is said time and again, they have the money, but we have the people, and most of the solutions to our own problems. All that is needed is the kind of citizenship that Woland prescribes, that we do our best in taking part in common tasks, the deliberations that define them, and the responsibilities that follow. Because as Plato reminds us, our city is what it is because our citizens are what they are.